Welcome back, friends and fiends, to another edition of Honto Vision here at Bloodnguts HHN. I'm your host, Mad Matt, and to my right, your left, would be the Devious Danielle in her first segment ever at Bloodnguts HHN. So, Danielle, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you. And as you know, as you can tell by the title, friends and fiends, we're going to be covering the Smoky Mountain Terror HorrorCon that happened this past weekend in Kingsport, Tennessee. So we got a great show lined up for you. First thing we're going to discuss is some of the actors that we've seen. We may mention some ones that were at the event that pop into our head, but mainly focus on the ones that we met and interacted with. And then we'll break down the panels that we were able to attend. And then we're going to round it out with 3 vendors where if you're at HorrorCons, you should definitely give them a look if you're here in the Southeast. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and break down the actors that we were able to meet. And like I said, Danielle, if you think of any that were there, like when discussing, we'll feel free to throw them out. But the very first actor we met was Dick Warlock, and I couldn't have been happier with my interaction with him. Now, he was the first. I'll be honest with you, friends. This is the first horror convention that we both have ever been to, and it's definitely not going to be the last if our lives are spared and we can actually get out and go to others. But like I said, Dick Warlock, he was the first one. You know him from Halloween 2 and Halloween 3, so he's a big Carpenter collaborator, always known for his stunt work. And being it was my first interaction, I think we kind of both were starstruck, but he was very sweet, very, very generous. When you said the same.
Yes, that was exactly what I was going to say. Just a very sweet guy.
Mm-hmm. And what I loved and made us both laugh was whenever it come time to take a selfie, he said, "Come on in here to Grandpa Dick," and put his arms around us both. So if you've not met Dick Warlock, we highly recommend going to his table, get you a selfie, get you an autograph. Like I said, he loves to sit and talk with his fans, so that was wonderful.
And he showed up super early.
Yes,
was there all day.
Unlike some people we'll talk about later.
Yes, but it was nice to see that he was very much. I mean, he was there as soon as it opened.
Yeah. Moving right along, we also met Dermot Mulroney, and he was another one I was so excited to see because I grew up on Young Guns. So he was, as you know, he was Dirty Steve. Some of you from the horror community may know him. I cannot remember his character's name, but he was recently in Scream 6 as the main villain. So he was, I'll let you go ahead and lead off. What did you think about Dermot before I piggyback off you?
Well, he was genuine for one.
Very.
Wanted to talk, wanted to interact with everybody. You spent at least a good 10 minutes with him.
Yeah.
He did have a little bit of a line,
mm-hmm.
but part of that was because he spent time with everybody.
Yep.
Which was very nice. And the great thing about him is you could take somebody with you that's not a huge horror person by no means. And he's in so many different types of movies.
He is. Like I said, he's got a fine repertoire that spans over 5 decades now. So that's one thing we actually talked to him about, how he mentioned how blessed he's been because he's been acting since his early 20s, and here he is now in his early 60s and still going strong. So like I said, he was fantastic. Like I said, like you mentioned, he spent easily 10 minutes with us, and it wasn't just like, chit chat to try to get you through the line. Like he was having a genuine conversation with you, asking things about you and then telling things about him that, like, for questions that we asked. So definitely recommend meeting Dermot if you hadn't had a chance to. So next on our list, we have, if you're a Lost Boys fan, he needs no introduction, we have Jameson Newlander, who played Alan Frog. And this is another one. He was one I had marked real high on my list of the people I want to meet because, as you can see above us, huge Lost Boys fans. And he did not disappoint. He was another one that took his time to speak with you. He was very personable, asked us questions about our family, told us about his family, about his 2 kids. We had kids around the same age.
Yep.
And just a genuinely kind person. And I'm happy to say that after the event, after we spoke a few times, he's actually a follower of Blood and Guts now. So, like I said, big shout out to Jameson. And if you have Instagram, be sure to follow him too at Jameson Newlander. But what do you have to say about Jameson?
Oh, he was super sweet. Just very likable. I mean, somebody walked by and he just got up and started talking to him.
Yeah.
I think he knew them, but he didn't hesitate to jump up out of his little booth and kind of get out there. But yeah, like you said, he asking questions about us.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't just us talking to him about him and his projects or anything else. He was genuinely interested, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm gonna let you mention the next one on our list because I know that one's up on yours.
Well, that one is, and it comes from if you're a girl and you know how that was growing up in the 90s. Most of us had Devin Sawa posters hanging in our bedroom, myself included. And he didn't disappoint. He's just as good looking now as he was then. Um, but yeah, he was super down to earth.
Yes, he was.
As far as a conversation with him, it wasn't as lengthy as some, but the day we talked to him, his line was super long and he was busy
Yes.
all day long. So I don't hold that against him at all because we were tired after day one. So I could
Yeah.
only imagine. But yeah, I was not disappointed at all.
No, I thought Devin was fantastic as well. One thing I'll mention since we're on the subject of Devin, he was the one we paid for like a celebrity photo op. So I will say this, friends and fiends, if your only opportunity to speak or meet with Devin, I would not choose the photo op for that portion because you literally walk in, he puts his arm around you, they tell you put your head up, smile, click, then they move on to the next person. So you definitely, if you want to actually have a good interaction with Devin, meet him at his table. And it's not his fault at the celebrity photo op. That's just how they do. They just wrangle you in, wrangle you out. So definitely take the time to go to his table, get you an autograph, get you a selfie. Like I said, he'll speak to you and talk. Like I said, it's like Danielle said, his line was out the door, so he could not be as personable as say these other ones were because they just didn't have the line like he did.
Right.
So moving on, then we have a star from Cabin Fever in Detroit Rock City, James DeBello, and he is another one I was super excited to meet because I love Cabin Fever. Just the quick backstory on it. That's the one that you took me to that I had never seen a trailer for, and I went into that movie blind and absolutely loved it. And James himself, he was personable. Took 10 to 15 minutes speaking with us.
Yeah.
He went over all these filming locations for Cabin Fever, and it's really right in our backyard up in Mount Airy. So that's another video we'll bring to you at some point, friends and fiends. But do you have anything to add about James?
He was almost, I don't want to say spastic, but he was just bubbly, I guess would be the right word.
That is a good way.
But yeah, he even brought his dog with him.
That dog was cute too.
And let everybody pet the dog that walked by. But yeah, he was very interactive with you.
Mm-hmm. So, yet moving right along, then, like I said, James was fantastic. You will not be disappointed if you're a Cabin Fever fan, Detroit Rock City. Like I said, you will not be disappointed if you go to his table. So, moving right along, this is another one I had ranked really high, and he did not disappoint. And that is the legendary Chop Top, Otis Driftwood, Bill Moseley, the one and only Bill Moseley. And what I loved about Bill, in my head when I went up to these tables, I was trying to think of something that would get them to actually interact with me that hopefully wouldn't be the same old questions they get. So after we paid his table to get the selfie and the autograph, he first thing he said, now comes the hard part in selecting what picture you want him to autograph. So I threw it back at him. I was like, which one is your favorite photo to autograph, Bill? And he goes, I don't get asked that a lot. And he goes, I actually only have one copy of this one left because I was running out, but I'm going to give that one to you. And he reached out in his bag and pulled out the one with Otis holding two pistols and put a fantastic quote on there. So this is another one, he normally had a long line even when he was there early in the morning.
Yes.
So we spent about 5 minutes with him, but he was still so personable and he was so sweet and so awesome. So everything you would expect him to be if you actually follow him on social media.
And I will say this, he did some photo ops as well.
Yeah.
But he had the wig.
Otis wig, yeah.
So when you had your picture taken with him, if you wanted a character, I guess I'll say,
yeah,
those would probably be worth it.
Yeah.
You get it to where he looks like Otis. And I will commend him. I think I seen him in 4 different outfits in one day.
Yeah, he changed a lot.
I'm not sure why it was 4 times in one day, but it did get it. It was noticed.
Right, it was. Moving right along, I'm so glad that I got to meet this actor. His name is Brett Wagner. I always knew he played Leatherface, but I honestly thought I did not know the backstory to it, and I'm ashamed to say that because I'm an aficionado in horror, and I actually like to read all this useless trivia. But I thought he was just a stunt double. I didn't realize that he was originally cast in the 2003 film as Leatherface, but then sadly he suffered a heat stroke not long into filming, and that's when we got the other actor, Andrew Barnowski, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, to play him. But Brett was so awesome. He actually talked to me first and actually educated me on that, and then was so gracious with his time. Like I said, we spent about 10 minutes talking to him, and I talked to him throughout the weekend. Like I said, there's about 2 or 3 times I actually just talked to him. And
Well, he would get up and move around too
he
throughout the
would.
crowd on occasion.
And this ended up happening with one of our best interactions of the weekend, where Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp grabbed the phone to take our picture, and then she photobombed us as
Yes.
well. And so as you can see Danielle in the photo, she's just tickled to death and just laughing. And it was just a fun time.
Yes, and I didn't realize, I mean, in the movies, you think Leatherface, you think a big guy, but he is so tall.
Yeah, he is. He was the only actor that was bigger than me that I took a picture with this
Yes.
weekend.
I mean,
And I'm a big guy.
and you see Jason in movies and Michael Myers, and they all look big in the films.
Right.
But he genuinely is the size that he looks.
Yeah, that's a great segue too, though, because like I said, Brett is a huge, and not only is he a huge killer, we also have Kane Hodder, who's next on our list. And like I said, that's been a bucket list for me for years and for years. And I know you too, because you love Friday the 13th movies.
Yes, those are my favorites.
So what did you think about Kane?
Oh, he was great. He talked for what? I want to say 15 minutes
15
maybe.
minutes. Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, he was great. He talked about all sorts of things.
He's super personable. Talked about, like I said, talked about his films, asked us questions about like what we liked about him, asked us questions about our days there.
Even asked your knowledge.
Yeah, he was testing my knowledge on things. And one thing was awesome too. He actually wasn't afraid to take a shot of scotch in front of us.
Nope.
That was so awesome. So I mean, if you get the chance to meet Kane, you could tell he truly loves his fans.
Yes,
loves his fans.
And even when we took the selfie with him, it was kind of funny. I mean, he put me in a chokehold almost.
Yeah.
And kind of did put me in a chokehold at one point. But yeah, it was really kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
And it transitioning them from someone, and I'm not going to say this person doesn't love their fans, but they're definitely a diva. So they're a diva.
They can probably guess who you're going to say.
Yeah, if you know who was there, who would that be, Danielle?
That would be Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman, the man who was supposed to be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, skipped out on Friday, 4 hours late on Saturday, and then skipped his panel on Sunday.
Yes.
Now, that's not to say that once we met Corey, he was nice and he actually interacted with us. But by the time he got there, he had the biggest line of anybody that weekend. So I say at max, we might have had 3 or 4 minutes with Corey.
Maybe.
And like I said, he was personable and talked, and I would still say he was sweet. We called him a good mood because I've heard stories about him.
But we were early in line. I'm not going to say what the mood would have been if we were pushed back a ways, but yeah, I mean, we were early on, so he was still in a good mood. As people around us were saying, he's not in his diva mood yet.
Yeah. So, like I said, if you catch him in the right mood setting, like Corey's actually a good one to meet. And like I said, we love Lost Boys. We love The Goonies, Stand By Me, The Burbs, a lot of stuff in his repertoire. So it was, like I said, I'm glad I can check that off and say I've met Corey Feldman and was able to talk to him. Moving right along then to another one I can say where we were truly starstruck.
Yes.
Yeah, is the great, the torture porn king, Eli Roth. Even though you could tell in his panel he didn't really care for that one. And I don't blame him. But Eli Roth was, once again, fantastic. What were your thoughts on him?
Well, it was a pleasure to meet him, to be there with him. Because like you said, I was completely starstruck with him.
Right.
And didn't think I would be with that one, but I really was. I just admire all of his movies so much. But yeah, we talked about Cabin Fever. We talked about how it was close by.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was great.
I have to say the same, and we'll talk about his panel a little further. But like I said, hearing that, he's another one where you can tell the fame has not went into his head, and he'd be someone you'd actually want to go out with and have a drink with and just be able to chit chat because he has a lot of horror movie knowledge, and that I love picking somebody's brains like that. Like, what's your favorite?
Yes.
And a lot of these ones here, a lot of their favorite movies are the ones that are our favorite movies as well. So that was always cool. So transition, I'm gonna let you because I know this is one I didn't have any interaction with at all.
Oh. Yes. Well, I am a Vampire Diaries fan. There's a lot of you out there, but it's not necessarily a horror type of show. But I met Kat Graham. Huge fan of hers, but she was the sweetest. I would say out of everybody of all weekend.
I could tell that.
She just was so happy. I don't think she sat down any. Her line was extremely long. But I jumped in line just to get a selfie with her. Got up there. She chatted for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told her, I haven't paid yet for this for the selfie, and she said, just go on. And I said, well, you told me to.
Right.
And she said, yep, go on. So, I mean, for somebody to say that, I mean,
genuinely a kind person.
She obviously wasn't there solely just
for
the money. She kind of really had a love for her fans, and it showed, especially with kids. You could see her with kids, and they just lit up.
Yeah, she was good with the little girls and everybody.
I mean, yeah, she was great. Which will lead me into the next one, because you didn't see him either.
No, but he was cool on his panel. I'll throw that out there.
But the one that plays Alaric in Vampire Diaries as well, Matthew Davis, he was super sweet too. I do think he was a little tired that day.
It was the third day.
Yeah, we were pushing it, and he'd also already had the panel that day, and but he was really, really sweet too, and just kind of had some. I talked about the panel to him, which we'll, I guess, talk about later. So I won't go into that very much, but yeah, he was great too.
That's awesome. Like I said, it's always good when you meet these ones that you can tell genuinely care about their fans. And I agree with you. Like, just from watching them from afar, they care about their fans.
Yes.
Moving on, this is another one cares about her fans, and you can tell. And she was honest. I could say she was the life of the party at Smoky Mountain Terror, and that is the wonderful Felissa Rose from Slipaway Camp. And like we mentioned earlier with Brett Wagner, how she stole the camera to take a selfie. She was just doing kind of hijinks like that all weekend, and everybody loves her, and rightfully so. Like I said, I love her. I love Sleepaway Camp. It was a wonderful movie to watch. Like I said, and just the twist at the end was always great. But she is so sweet and so loving, and she's probably the most kindest actresses I've ever followed and kept up with. So it was such a pleasure to actually get to meet and talk. And like I said, we talked about 10 minutes too. And she was just telling me, she just kept reiterating how much she loves her fans and loves us, and how we're the reason she does these things. And I truly believe that with her. And then moving on to one of our favorite interactions of the weekend too. If you love the theme and you love Warriors, but mainly, like I said, our main one is the theme. Always love Windows. Is one of my favorite characters. You've got Thomas Waits. And friends and fiends, if you have Instagram, go follow him at Heartbreak Waits. It's his band. I know he would love for you to follow it and support his band's fantastic music as well. But he was so awesome to talk to. Like I said, we spent 10, 15 minutes with him.
Oh yeah, easily. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was great. Had stories.
Lots of stories. Like I said, personal stories I don't want to share here because I don't know if he'd want to or not. That's how awesome he was, and just made us laugh. And it was just so sweet and kind.
And it made me think, I would love to sit down with him for hours
pick his brain.
And just hear the stories, because I'm sure he has some.
Yep. And last but not least of the ones that we met was Warrington Gillette, and you know him, friends and fiends, as the first one to play the adult Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2. And Warrington, best way to explain him, and I mean this in a good way, is very spastic. And like I said, I love that about him. But you can tell too, he's excited to interact with his fans. Yes. And he has a book coming out. And I'm going to put the screenshot of the book. I can't recall the name off the top of my head.
Social Justice, maybe? Social something.
Yeah, I cannot remember that off the top of my head. But like I said, we'll put the screenshot up there of that book. And it's dropping in a few weeks. So like I said, just hearing him describe the book, it's a semi-true story about how he believes his stepmother murdered his father. And just the backstory of it, like they go out for dinner. He thinks that she gave him this, I can't remember the name of the
oleander.
Yeah, flower that will make you drop dead in a few seconds. And he thinks, like I say, that stepmother murdered his father. And just hearing him describe it just sounds like one of those great murder mysteries that you'd want to see.
Yes,
so
it sounded interesting. And
so I'm definitely picking up a copy. Please go pick up a copy and support Warrington as well. Like I said, we'll put that information up here. But some other notable guests that were there that we just didn't have time to see. Tara Reid was there, and we've seen her a few times in the hall. She was real sweet. She
looked so down to earth.
Yes. And Thomas Ian Nichols, also from American Pie, was there. We didn't really get to interact with him at all, but he seemed sweet. Edward Furlong seemed like he's in a good spot now from Terminator 2. Michael Biehn, like I seen him at his table, but didn't get you. He had long lines too. but probably the main draws of the ones we didn't see, the Scream cast.
Yes.
You had Skeet Ulrich was there, Jamie Kennedy. I cannot recall the actor who played Ghostface, but he was there. And there was another lady from Scream 6. I cannot recall her name, but she was there.
Yeah.
And like I said, just a whole lots of other people. Phil Falcone took our photo with Thomas Waits from Terrifier 3. It's a producer, and he's a super nice guy. I talked to him for a few minutes, like I said, so that was awesome. So definitely from a talent perspective, Smoky Mountain Terror delivers. So all your horror fans that you want to see, wrestlers were there. I almost forgot to mention.
Matt and Jeff Hardy.
Yep, and Glenn Jacobs or Kane was there for one day, and then Jerry the King Lawler, like I said, legendary King, he was there, and Bill Moseley was starstruck with him and actually had to take a selfie, and we saw that, so that was awesome. So transitioning now, friends and things, the panels that we were able to attend quite a few in the 2 days. We didn't get to see the ones on Friday because, to be honest with you, we didn't know where the panel room was to begin with, so that's how we missed out. But the one I really missed out on that one was the Scream Queens with Felissa Rose and Heather Donahue from Blair Witch. She was really sweet. And the Terminator panel, I would love to see that. But we did see the back half of the Scream panel with all them, and that was fantastic. Like Jamie Kennedy was super hopped up for that one, so it was fun hearing him tell stories. But one of my favorite ones was the Eli Roth panel, which is the first one we got to see. And, was there anything in that one that stood out to you?
Honestly, I loved hearing him talk about all of the places that they filmed.
Yeah.
Because that's part of what I always liked about his films anyway. But hearing him talk about the jungles and the Amazon and even to a mental asylum, a running mental asylum, but they filmed in the basement that was not used.
And then wanted to use the rafters. Like, can we shoot here? And the guy went up to the rafter, jumped a couple times. Yeah, it looks good. We can do it.
So that was probably my favorite part of the panel. What about you?
Honestly, I loved hearing him talk about the rotten fruit. I loved hearing him talk about where he come from because you could tell he's still down to earth. He talked about how he used to be like a roadie for Weird Al Yankovic and was doing things for the director David Lynch. And so he's come so far, and it's awesome to see that and how it hasn't went to his head, and he's still doing things like movies where he's wanting to test his limits, and he says he only wants to do movies where it could ruin his career. So he's like, screw it, we'll do it anyway. So
made his own company
own company do that. And so I'm looking forward to the Ice Cream Man that he's working on now, and then he's still working on Thanksgiving too. So I'm looking forward to both those projects. So moving on, then the panel that I was there for the one I had circled was upsetting because we talked about a diva earlier, Corey Feldman. He decided at the very last minute to pull out of the panel. But that was no big deal because we had Jameson Newlander and G. Tom Mack, who sung Cry Little Sister, be on that panel. And it was still, because I'm a Lost Boys fan, it was still my favorite panel of the weekend. And the cherry on top of that was watching G. Tom Mack perform a concert afterwards. And that man can still belt it out. What did you think of that panel, too? Like, anything to add on it?
Oh, I loved it. James is fantastic.
Yeah, Jameson is awesome.
Yeah, he's
so humble.
Yeah, I mean, he was so down to earth and just very personable with all the questions that he answered. But I'm like you, the highlight of that one was the concert after.
Yeah, so awesome.
It was great.
And we'll have, like I said, I'm gonna have footage posted. We'll post the concert on there. We'll post some of these panels that I was able to get lengthy footage of there. That way you can see it, friends and things. Moving right along, this was my second favorite panel because you know me. I love 80s horror. I love slasher movies. So we had the Slasher Legends that was attended by Warrington Gillette, Bill Moseley, and Kane Hodder. And that was just a fun panel watching them give each other grief throughout the event.
Yes, and there was a lot of that.
Yes, there was.
There was a lot of that back and forth, which was, you could tell it was done in fun.
Yes.
So it was very nice to kind of watch them joke and kid with each other.
It was. And honestly, I cannot remember the full name of the movie, but I know it's something 37 that Bill Moseley and Kane Hodder said they were in. I'm going to have to definitely check that out because it sounded like it was a movie they said deserved more love. But Bill Moseley on that panel, which he's got quick wit, he just tickles the pure tea out of me because he's so funny.
Well, they said they were in 18 films together.
And I got some catching up to do now on that to watch them. Moving right along then, this was a panel where I was not excited about, but ended up loving it because the cast themselves were so hilarious and so fun to watch because you can tell they get along really well.
Mm-hmm.
What panel was that, Danielle?
That was the Vampire Diaries.
And the originals, too.
Yes.
So
yeah, and they did. That was the discussion that I had with Matt Davis, and he joked about it and made a face, and said, well, it was just acting.
Yeah.
But you could tell that they really liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
And their stories were hilarious.
Yes, they were. Especially, I can't think of that one actor's name that was on the far end.
He plays Cole.
Plays Cole on the show.
Yes.
That dude there is hilarious. Like, if he doesn't do stand-up comedy, which I don't know if he does or doesn't, but he needs to, because watching him tell stories and act them out was so funny.
Yes, because he'd get up and go back and forth. Yeah. And they even called someone's mom in the crowd.
The mother.
Yeah.
So they definitely were a lot of fun. So even if you're not a fan of that show, if you're ever have a chance to attend a panel with these actors, I highly suggest to do so because they're great people. Moving right along then, this was probably my least favorite panel because it was just two of the actors. I can't recall their names. And it's not that they were bad in general. There was just a lot of them talking. Like they only answered like maybe 2 questions.
Maybe.
It was the True Blood panel. And like I said, but you could tell them two loved each other. And they had a lot of camaraderie working on that show together. And so there was definitely a strong bond between them two that was awesome to see. Was there anything that stood out to you in that panel too?
I mean, the stories were great.
Yeah, the stories were great.
They didn't answer the questions really. I don't know that they really truly answered any of the questions, to be honest. But they would start out with it and then end up somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But the story was great.
It sure was. And like I said, so, I mean, if you're a True Blood fan, definitely recommend it. Like I said, I've never really watched the show, although I've heard good things about it.
It is good.
So that might be something I need to check out, too, because I know at least it's done by HBO, so it's got the blood and the gore that I would like on that. We'll come back to this one, but moving on to the Grimm panel, that was one where neither one of us has seen the show, but the actors themselves did a great job selling it. I'll give them that.
They did, because it made me want to go watch it.
Yes, it did. And so, I mean, they told a lot of great stories, obviously, about the show as well. And like I said, you can tell that cast got along, too, which is part of the reason it made me want to see, because you can tell they gel really well. So let me know in the comments if you've seen the Grimm show. What are your thoughts on it? Do you like it? Let us know. Moving on then, this was one I didn't really have highlighted on there. And it wasn't really one that was great for Q&A, but, man, was it entertaining. And that's The Other Guys, which had Dermot Mulroney and Dylan McDermott. And I didn't know, because, I mean, I know both these actors well, and I'm easily able to separate them. But apparently there's a Saturday Night Live skit where they would, like, mix them two together and try to make you guess what shoe, and it's confused people ever since. Yes. But in that panel, the only question you could not ask was why they're referred to as the other guys and why they keep getting mixed up. But they gave each other a lot of grief and played jokes on each other, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, yes.
And who's your favorite out of the two, Dermot and Dylan?
I don't know.
Mine's Dermot.
My favorite is probably Dylan.
Dylan? Okay. Well, you love American Horror Story.
I do. I like a lot of his stuff, so I'm going to say he's probably my favorite. But
I'm a big Dermot fan, so.
But finding out that he played the cello was kind of interesting.
Yes, then gave us a demonstration. That was awesome. Gosh, yeah. Like I said, that was one, like Friends and Fiends, if you actually have a day to devote to panels, I would suggest sitting through them, because you'll end up being surprised by some of the stuff maybe you didn't know or didn't think you would like. This was one, like I said, I left thinking, man, that just watching them was hilarious.
Yes.
But then last but not least, as far as panel goes, we've come back around to one of your childhood crushes. And who was that?
That was Devon Sawa.
Devon Sawa. What do you have to say about this panel?
Well, I learned things about him that I didn't know.
Like what?
Even as infatuated as I was with him. He actually grew up in Canada, and I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I figured I would have.
But he had no idea he was as popular as he was, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, let's give a little backstory on that. He mentioned Friends and Fiends. The reason why he is so down to earth is because when he goes back to Canada, he would film his movie, do his press junkets, but then go back to Canada. Up in Canada, they didn't have like the teen magazines or the teen heartthrob stuff. So he was totally oblivious and unaware. Like he even said he'd go back to public school.
Yes, and said nobody treated him any different.
So he said he was like 4 years into his career before he realized.
Said it was when they filmed Wild America. He said that was when he caught on to it a little bit that he was as big as he was here.
And just hearing him sit there and talk about it, because even the hosts of the shows, we're talking about, no, come on, they don't treat you like a regular dad. Because no, they treat like everything at home is like regular, normal, down to earth stuff, which I have to praise him for that. Because I mean, he can easily let stuff go to his head and be like, hey, look at me, and puff out my chest. And you can just tell he doesn't seem like that type.
No, and he said one of his children went through a phase where they went places and he'd go, my dad's Casper. He said that was all he would say for a little while. He said, but then it turned into nobody cares.
And I loved hearing, because one of my favorite movies of his was Idle Hands. So knowing that's it, that he didn't necessarily say that was his favorite movie, but that he said that was his favorite one to shoot.
Yes.
And hearing him talk about horror and how much he loves the horror genre, like he mentioned, Final Destination was a tough shoot, but he loved the movie. But he said he loved the Chucky series because where he was bummed the first season because he died, and then bummed he died in the second season. But then when they kept bringing him back, he's like, "Wow, this is fun. I'm gonna flip to the page now and see how I die this season." So that his was one of my favorites. That one, Lost Boys, is probably my two favorite panels. Or I don't know, Horror Legends. That'd be hard to rank these. They're all
I had a lot
good.
of favorites.
Yeah. So anything else to add for Devin Sawa's panel before we transition?
I don't think so. Just that I mean, honestly, he was just so down to earth.
Yeah, very down to earth, very charming.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
I mean, but he really is, which shocked me a little bit. I didn't expect him to be quite like that.
Yeah. Like I said, that was all. Honestly, with all these celebrities, other than, like I said, I really don't want to throw shade at Corey Feldman, but everybody else we met just seemed so normal, which was great to see. Like, and that's one thing to see, friends and things, is they are people just like you and I. So, like, if you see them out in public, we basically treat them like they're off the clock. We only want to talk to them when they're at their booths. If we've seen them out in the hotel or at the bar, if they talk to us, which some did, that's when we would talk back. But we wouldn't go out of our way to try to bug them on their time off. Because I know Jamie Kennedy put a little video up there about how sometimes they just need space because they're burned out after doing that all day long.
And I can get that 100%.
Absolutely.
That is a long day for some of those guys.
Yes, it is. So transition to the last one. This is actually one of my favorite pieces because at the event at Smoky Mountain Terror, there were a lot of vendors. So you can buy a lot of horror merchandise. They had like some horror novels, gothic novels, T-shirts, like anything you can think of. But these three vendors were ones that just really stood out to us, and we thought they deserve a shout out. And we really challenge you to go follow them on Instagram, because I guarantee you will find something that you will love from these vendors. And the very first one is the Grim Wreath. And I believe her name is Sarah Claxton. Runs that little shop where she makes all these horror themed wreaths and other horror merch. And you're the one who discovered her first. You've been following her for years.
Yeah, she's everything she does is 100% original and hand painted. And I mean, she makes videos and posts them of the hand painting and of the process of a lot of things. And it's really kind of neat to see her go through that.
It is. And one thing I loved about her, too, is her and her staff all were so friendly.
Oh, they were.
Like we stood there and talked about 5 or 10 minutes with them and stuff. Like, you can just tell they're hardcore horror fans, and that's something I really respect. And like you said, they're so creative in their designs for things they do.
And I mean, she sells them online, too, so you can order them and have them shipped. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to just find her at a convention or anything, which I think that was her first convention she'd ever set up at.
She mentioned that. And they done really well.
Yes, they did. But yeah, her work is fantastic.
It is. And moving on, this next person was so personable. We talked to him multiple times throughout the weekend, and he was super cool guy. Loved his work. He does a lot of art. A lot of hand drawings, paintings, oil paintings, about anything you can think of, and they're all super cool. Like, even his original art is amazing. So I highly suggest go follow Wes Flannery and his art. Like I said, he's on Instagram, and I know he has a link to his shop too, so I'm assuming he will ship too. So go give him a follow. Like I said, I cannot speak highly enough of Wes and the things that he done. We bought multiple pieces of art. I know we got the Invisible Man. Was it Young Frankenstein?
Yes.
Got a Young Frankenstein and a Wolfman, all paint or
Yes.
prints is what we got them, and we'll show those to you. Like I said, they're all amazing. Like I said, I'm super excited to actually get those framed and hung up.
Yes.
So what do you have to say about Wade? You're an artist yourself.
His work was phenomenal. I actually liked his original stuff probably better than I liked.
I know he'd love
the
to hear
movie
that.
stuff. But I will say you don't see a lot of charcoal pieces.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of that, and they were really good. Obviously, they're a little harder to keep intact, because of what it is, but they were phenomenal. And me being what I am, that's what I appreciated the most out of his.
What I loved and what I appreciate out of his too, he actually showed us some artwork he done from like 2013 and now, and how much he has grown as an artist, because he said like he just doesn't watch TV when he gets home from his regular day job. He goes in, locks himself up, and starts working on his art and stuff. And I just appreciate that so much, and it definitely shows how awesome it is. And last but not least, we have Vulgar Dragon's Den, and like I said, go give them a shout out on or follow them on Instagram, give them a shout out. This piece you see behind our heads of Lost Boys, that's just one of the few artworks that we bought this week from him, and he does an amazing job. And once again, everything is a one of a kind.
Yes, he actually told us that process. He has a program of some sort, and he can never make two of the same piece,
right?
Which is pretty cool, because you're going to be the only person with that one.
And one thing I love about it is, and at least in these, he's got that little QR code that'll take you something a little bit special in there. So like with this one here, you click on that QR code, it takes you to the scene where Michael finds out that the Lost Boys are vampires, and that so that's just a nice touch. And so like I said, all three of these vendors were wonderful people to speak with. Like I said, just I highly encourage you to go look at their stuff, and like I said, support them. If you're at a horror convention and you see them, tell them Bloodnguts HHN sent you.
Yes.
So that's it, friends and fiends. That's our overall review of the Smoky Mountain Terror. It's definitely something we highly recommend. So I know next year's event is going to take place in August, I believe. Yep. So go ahead and follow their page. Follow 8Lug
Circus.
8Lug Circus that takes care of the celebrities, because they'll do updates there as well. That way you can go ahead and plan if you want to go to Kingsport, Tennessee. But we highly recommend it.
Yes, and they actually have 3 events.
Yep, they sure do.
That's one of 3 that they do.
They do like a horror convention, and one's like a regular celebrity one. Do you remember what the other one was?
I don't. I know the one in August is Fan Fest.
Okay, that's probably the one I'm thinking of then.
Yep.
So Fan Fest, like I said, a regular celebrity con and horror con. So like I said, if you actually went to Smoky Mountain Terror, leave in the comment, let us know what you thought. Who was your favorite celebrity? Who maybe was your least favorites? Like I said, we love to hear this stuff. And as usual, make sure you like, subscribe, and like I said, hit that notification bell so you know when we drop another video. So stay spooky.
What's going on, y'all? This is Chad from Vulgar Dragon's Den. We are here at Smoky Mountain Terror. You guys need to like and subscribe. Blood and Guts HHN. They're cool folks. It's a great channel. Come check us out.